From the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University, this is Trailblazer Weekly, starring Carrick Segmeller and Drayson Ball.
Welcome inside Trailblazer Weekly on a Wednesday afternoon. Indeed, it is time for another exciting edition of the show. We count down this time every single week, and it is time. Carrick Segmeller, Drayson Ball with you inside the Jennings Communication Building, Studio A inside the CEC TV studios. We're live on CEC TV, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and on the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page. And let me tell you, we've got a loaded show today. Baseball and softball are just about ready to get underway. We'll have Coach Fatenhauer on the show. Both preseason polls are out for softball and for baseball. There's a lot to get to today. We got to break it down. We're going to do some news or nonsense, which is our version of big deal, no big deal. Ton of stuff to get to. We're going to have a blast today. It's
going to be so good. We're going to have Coach Chris Fatenhauer on the show, like you mentioned. One of my favorite people to talk to in all of this tremendous campus and the great players we have and the great teammates and coaches that we have on this school. I love talking to Chris Fatenhauer. Always a good conversation. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so we're going to talk with Coach Fate a little bit later in the show. We play News or Nonsense today. We'll take a look at our Blazer beat. We've got some sound and some video from President Williams today with talking a little bit more about the Greater Zion Stadium deal and just how big of a deal that is for this university. Let's take this time to preview next week's show. I know we're talking about this week, but we want to give everyone a heads up for next week because we have got our signing day special next week, and we're going to have Coach Peterson in here. He's going to spend 2 full segments with us. This football coaching staff has been out on the road recruiting and finding the guys that this program needs to take that step to the next level, and I'm excited to see who puts the pen to the paper for this Dixie State football team, who they get in, how many local guys they get in, what needs were they looking to address, and we're going to talk to them about everything, and it's going to be a blast next week.
Last year we had him on the show, kind of a similar type of thing. We didn't really make it a signing day special, but we kind of wanted to do a little bit more this season, so we're going to have him on for 30 straight minutes of head coach Paul Peterson telling you everything you need to know about next year's team and getting us ready for Division I. It's going to be really, really exciting to have Coach Paul Peterson on. A great listen.
Yeah, so set your alarms, mark your calendars. Next Wednesday, February 5th, is National Signing Day for football. So you can follow the football Twitter at Dixie State _FB, or follow Dixie State Athletics at Dixie Athletics on Twitter, and then follow the website DixieStateAthletics.com for updates as well. You'll see updates all throughout the day next week. And so stay up to date, stay close. There may be a time change to the show for that. We're confirming that, and we'll get it out on our social media and let you know as soon as we can. So it's going to be a blast next week. This week's show is going to be a blast as well, and we started off, as we always do, with our Blazer beat and let you know what's going on around campus here at Dixie State University. Let's start with our baseball and softball polls coming out. It's that time of year. There's polls galore, national polls, conference polls, but the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference released its preseason baseball and softball polls. Baseball second in the RMAC poll, 1 first-place vote. They're also 17th in national rankings in the Perfect Game National Poll. It's a group that talks Division II baseball online. Softball first in the RMAC, picked for the second consecutive season as the preseason favorite. They've got 7 first-place votes. They're also receiving votes in the NFCA Top 25 poll. Men's basketball, 74-68 win over Colorado Mesa and an 87-57 win over Western Colorado this last week. They've moved up to number 19 in the NABC Top 25 poll. Women's basketball, 59-51 loss to number 22 Colorado Mesa Friday, and then bouncing back with a monumental 68-54 win over Western Colorado. Women's swimming, a 154-50 dual win over Loyola Marymount on Saturday, closing out the regular season. It was senior day. They did it in style. A big win over Division I Loyola Marymount. Won 10 out of 11 events in that one, including 8 individual wins and 2 team wins. They move on to the RMAC Championships on February 12th through the 15th in Grand Junction, coming up in a couple of weeks. And lastly, if you haven't seen it yet, head over to either the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page or to the Dixie State Athletics Twitter or the Dixie State Football Twitter. the Trailblazer football program in association with Phil Tuckett and DSU Films, which Phil has worked and has worked for NFL Films for over 30 years and has done a ton of great work. They've released a 6.5-minute video entitled On the Rise, and there's a longer length coming, but it kind of chronicles part of the Dixie State season last year. You get to see some highlights. You get to hear some of the players and coaches mic'd up. It's great. You got to go see it. The Dixie State football program is on the rise and moving forward to Division I, so you got to see it.
The video is very well done. It's excellent. Both Carrick and I have shared it on our Twitters, so follow at Carrick Segmiller, at Drayson_DSU. Go to our links or go to Dixie State Football, Twitter.com, or Dixie State Athletics as well, and you'll be able to find that on Twitter.
That's our Blazer Beat this week. How about our Campus Store Player of the Week? We go to men's basketball, and after the way he took the game over Friday and then continued to play well Saturday, and we could probably do this each and every week, but Jack Pagenkoff went off Friday night and scored 18 points in the second half against Colorado Mesa, and then had a big game the next night against Western Colorado. For the week, averaging about 17 points per game and 7.5 rebounds per game. Huge weekend for Jack Pagenkoff.
Yeah, 21 points on Friday, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. He really carried the load for them. With under 10 minutes to go, he scored 18 of the final 22 points and ultimately getting the win over Colorado Mesa. And then the next night against Western Colorado, he had nearly had a triple-double. He had 11 points with 9 rebounds and 8 assists as well. So he was flat out amazing. We'll talk a little bit more about him in just a minute.
Yeah, coming up right now, actually, as Jack Pagenkoff is our Campus Store Player of the Week. And we mentioned as part of that Player of the Week selection, he scored 21 points against Colorado Mesa on Friday night, and it was a win that this men's basketball program absolutely had to have if they wanted to maintain their lead in the RMAC. He only scored 3 points in the first half Friday night. 18 points in the second half, 15 points in the final 8 minutes, including a pair of back-to-back threes, crossover threes that just sent his defender flying. He took that game over. I think that's not overstating what happened Friday night. This Dixie State team had a double-digit lead. They were faltering a little bit. The lead got trimmed down to 1, and then you had your senior captain and Jack Pagenkoff step up and say, hop on, get on my back, get on my shoulders. We're not going to lose this game. We're not losing another game at home this year like they did against Colorado School of Mines. And he scored 15 points in the final 8 minutes, and it was incredible. So that got me thinking, when and who have you seen take over games like that? And that's our question of the day today. What other performances have you seen where guys just take games over? And we can look at it at the Dixie State level. We can look at it at D1 college basketball, NBA, however you want to look at it. But that's the question of the day today. When have you seen, or when was the last time you've seen someone do like Jack Pagenkoff did and absolutely just take over and say, we're not losing, we're going to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of the things you look at a lot, and you hear the mantra or the nickname a closer. If you're considered a closer, that means you have the capability of being able to just say, get on my back. We're gonna, this last 8 minutes, we're gonna, I'm really gonna carry the team. And obviously, there's a very select amount of guys in the NBA that can even do that. You think of the LeBron James, the Kevin Durant's, the Damian Lillards, maybe even Kawhi Leonard. There's just a very few amount of people that can do that can say, 6 minutes left, we're down by 2, I'm going to take over and we're going to try to get this win. And for Jack Pagenkoff to do what he did, it's very hard to remember anyone in Dixie State's history that's really been able to do that. The first name that came to my mind was Trevor Hill, and obviously rightly so. Trevor is a Dixie State basketball legend, and so that was obviously the first name that I thought of, and just a few years removed from Trevor Hill, as we're getting to see a few of the highlights here from Jack Pagenkoff over the weekend. Trevor Hill had a lot of abilities on the basketball court. He was extremely athletic. He could get to the rim whenever he wanted to. He was a good passer. He was a good rebounder. Much like Jack Pagenkoff, he flirted with the triple-double on numerous occasions. And so he's the kind of guy, the de facto guy that I thought of. Here's the difference with Jack Pagenkoff and Trevor Hill. Trevor Hill could do just about anything he wanted to do on the basketball court. He wasn't a great three-point shooter. He was just a 29% career three-point shooter, so he didn't necessarily have to rely on the three-point shooter or the three-point shot. Jack Pagenkoff's a much better three-point shooter, and he displayed that. And so that's maybe just another element of Pagenkoff's game that Trevor Hill didn't have. Now, obviously, Trevor could maybe do a few more things than Jack could, but Jack's a great rebounder. He's a great passer. He's good at getting his teammates involved, and so that was the name synonymous with, Jack Pagenkoff that I first thought of. And so Jack adds that extra element to his game to be able to control the game from the three-point line and be able to be a dual threat, to be able to get to the rim, either distribute or lay it up himself, or, like we saw, step back and hit that three over someone's face. And so that's really one of the keys for me is there's not a whole lot of players that can do that, and we've certainly not seen a whole lot of players that can do that at Dixie State.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Trevor Hill, because he's one that I was going to bring up as well. If you didn't, when we're looking at it Dixie State-wise, and especially in the last 5 or 6 years, you want to talk about a player that had that ability to take a game over. I mean, Trevor Hill had this innate ability to be able to get to the basket whenever you needed to. Like you said, he wasn't a great three-point shooter, but he did step up and he had some big threes, and I'll give you an example of one here in just a minute. But I'll never forget how he would almost cradle the basketball like he was a fullback, cutting through the lane. He would take a couple of dribbles, and then as he was getting ready to take flight, kind of cradled the ball, and then he would get to the bucket and either get it up in and score or get fouled, and that's why he's the Dixie State career leader in free throw attempts. I mean, he was at the free throw line all the time, and he could score. He's the number 2 career scorer. The number 1 is Zach Robbins. He was a post player. He's another dominant player, and he would just put in consistent 20-point games after double-double type games all the time. And Trevor was that guy that was the explosive guy that could take a game over. Let me give you an example, because I posed the question, when was the last time that you remembered a performance like Jack Pagenkoff? Now, remember, the Jack Pagenkoff scored 15 points in 8 minutes. Let me take you back to the 2017-2018 season. Dixie State men's basketball team is a 500 team. Now, mind you, this is the year they won the conference regular season title and the tournament title. But they're a 500 team at the time, and they're at home playing California Baptist, probably your most bitter rival in the Pac-West Conference at the time. You've got an 8-point lead with 3.5 minutes left at home. The lead dissolves. It goes away. And you go to overtime. And I just remember thinking, they had a player named Jason Todd who hit a three with under 20 seconds to play. And we go to overtime. I'm just sitting here thinking, oh, here we go. It goes to overtime, and the question was, who was going to take over? First possession of overtime, Trevor Hill hits a three. Cal Baptist goes down. They tie the game eventually take a 65-63 lead in overtime. And it remains tied, and then you've all seen the play. It's on the Division I promo that we've seen. Trevor Hill gets a steal, a tip steal, and then a dunk in transition to retake the lead, and Dixie State ends up winning that game. He scored 5 of Dixie State's 8 points in overtime, and for me, that was huge. And then the Jack Pagenkoff thing happened, and now that's the most recent one in our memory. But Trevor Hill, like you said, was explosive. If you want to go back to the NBA, we're running out of time on the segment. But if you want to go far back, you think of guys like Michael Jordan. I had a poster on my wall that it was a quote from one of his teammates from in the early 90s, and it said, in those late game situations, we give the ball to Michael and say, save us, Michael, and he does. That was the kind of thing that he did. Kobe Bryant was one of those players. May he rest in peace. Yeah. Just absolutely tragic, devastating news. Yeah. But Jack Pagenkoff did something that you don't see very often, and it was incredible on Friday night.
And it was just fun to go back for me, and this will lead right into our Rock Canyon Bank By the Numbers feature. So let's go ahead and roll that right now, our Rock Canyon Bank By the Numbers feature. Let's rewind, and let's go kind of minute by minute as far as what happened in that game. With 14 minutes and 20 seconds remaining, Dixie State had a 15-point lead. Over the next 4.5 minutes, that lead disappeared, and it was down to 1. With 9:40 remaining, Dixie State had a 1-point lead, and Jack Pagenkoff subbed back into the game. He hits back-to-back threes right after checking in within that first 90 seconds or so of checking in. He had 2 layups later in that 9-minute period, and then he hit back-to-back threes with under a minute to go and scored 18 of the final 22 points for Dixie State. Now let's rewind just a little bit more. Dixie State's win probability at that 14-20 mark when they were up by 15 points, 93.5%. So their win probability at that point, they were going to win the game, but then their lead shrinks rapidly, and Jack Painkoff comes back into the game. When he comes back into the game, their win probability was only at 56%. So from going to almost you're going to win the game to almost a toss-up, a coin flip, and then Jack Painkoff takes over. We have not seen that for a long time, and Painkoff was tremendous in both games on the weekend.
And he's tremendous always. I mean, he just is the person you want leading the game. And we heard some stories in the post game against Coach Judkins, and I know we're up against the break. We got to run to break, but just stories of him taking players aside and saying, "Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's," stories of when he hit his last three in the game. Coach Judkins went into the huddle and wanted to drop a certain play, and Jack said, "No, let's do this. It'll work." And they go out and he made the three and helped them win that ball game. Incredible performance by Jack Painkoff and this men's basketball team. They're on fire right now. They take the show out on the road this week, and it's a tough test. Very tough 4-game road slate coming up. We'll see how they can do going forward. Currently tied for first place with Black Hills State. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to play News or Nonsense. Drayson and I kind of go back and forth on some questions that we have and some news here in the Dixie State Athletics department and for Trailblazer Athletics. It's our is it a big deal or is it not a big deal? And we'll tell you those questions and whether we think it's news or nonsense coming up after this timeout.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the Trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience, mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
All right, man, I need you to go deep.
All right, I'll catch this one, I promise. Post route, back of the end zone.
Got it, let's do it.
We may not always play good, but when we want to look good, we come to the Dixie State campus store.
Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center. We'll see you there.
Radio Dixie 91.3, Young the Giant, something to believe in.
John, what song do you want to hear?
Next, Miss Calendris. You'll be on the SWAT team, the best SWAT team.
That's a fantastic situation. I should talk to you. I was going to talk to you last time.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
There is a place where rocks bleed and nature blushes on a battlefield green with envy, where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden T holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where friends are opponents and opponents are friends, where the prize is elusive, the conquest is captivating, and the score isn't settled till the drinks are down. There is a place.
Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not as they seem.
Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts so stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating, funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, Be not like dumb-driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife.
Lives of great men all remind us that our lives can be sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate. Still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait.
Today's show is brought to you by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official source for DSU Trailblazer clothing, providing students with textbooks as well as educational, office, and art supplies. Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center, the Dixie State Campus Store, proud sponsor of Trailblazer Weekly.
It's time for Carrick and Drayson to tell us what's news and what's nonsense.
Indeed, that is the question. Is it news or is it nonsense? Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. Carrick Sagmiller, Drayson Ball with you on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon as baseball season approaches. Time to play news or nonsense. And what it is it's our version of is it a big deal or is it not a big deal? So is it news or is it nonsense? And we're going to dive right into it. This first one's a no-brainer. And if you say nonsense on this one, Drayson, I might throw you off the set. So first one we have Greater Zion Stadium. Announcement last week, Dixie State partnering with Washington County and with Greater Zion, a $10 million deal to get that, press box built and have some renovations to that west side of the locker rooms and at the stadium. So is it news or is it nonsense?
Yeah, it's definitely news. I mean, no doubt about it. You can't say that this is anything other than news and huge monumental news, because Dixie State has been trying to do this, this 4-phase renovation of Trailblazer Stadium, which is now going to be called Greater Zion Stadium, obviously. And, they've just needed the funds and needed the kind of energy around the school to be able to get it done. They've obviously done the track, which was a great addition. They've done the east side grandstands, which makes it feel like a college stadium once again. And then finally, now after a few years and a few little debacles here and there that we won't get into, they finally have that deal in place to be able to finish this phase that they started long ago, to be able to upgrade that west side. It's definitely news, and I cannot wait to see how it's finished.
Debacles in terms of deals they thought were going to work out that didn't working out, and now I think they've got one that's even better, is stronger. I mean, it ties in not only a local group or a group here in the state, but a community, the Greater Zion area and Washington County. Why would you not want that on your stadium? And it's a no-brainer for both sides of the equation. It's huge for Dixie State. Obviously, with the move to Division I, the facilities that are up there right now and even down in the locker rooms are just, quite frankly, they're just not going to cut it at the Division I level. You're going to lose recruits. That's the type of stuff that they look at. From my perspective, working in the press box a lot right now, I mean, you're talking about bringing some of your friends from up north in northern Utah at the other FCS schools. They're going to come down and play here. The thought of hosting them in the current facilities was just one that made you cringe. And President Williams too, and athletic director Dr. Jason Booth. And so they went out, got this deal done, and it's absolutely huge for the university. So it is news, definitely. Speaking of President Williams, here's his comments about why this is such huge news at the Washington County Commissioners meeting last Tuesday when it was announced that this would pass.
Partnerships like these really help, and being able to have a win-win and be able to promote the Greater Zion. When I was there at the launch, my wheels started turning because it's such a great brand, and looking at they want to inspire greater, experience greater, and live greater, and combine that with our active learning, active life that we have at our institution. It just makes sense to partner in so many different ways. Third phase of looking on the West Grandstand, we know with Division I athletics, we're going to need to expand our press box. We also want to accommodate economic growth, and we know that some businesses and companies that will want to come will want to have loge and club seating and better press, and we'll also have entertainment areas on that west side. So our next steps will be looking to start some bonding approvals and get the design phase. We have the programming phase, and we're going to move forward as quickly as possible. And it'll be nice when institutions from up the road come to our new stadium, that we'll be able to put on a good show and beat them. So.
Looking forward to that.
So that was President Williams at the Washington County Commissioners meeting. Great comments there, and just was integral in getting this job done. We are led by a president that is very invested in this community and this school and in athletics, and it's great to see that. So Greater Zion Stadium, definitely news. Chalk that one up. Moving on to the second question that we have, we mentioned the spring sports polls being released. Softball poll, the RMAC preseason coaches poll comes out, and for the second straight season, Dixie State is atop that list. They are the preseason favorite ahead of reigning regular season champion Colorado Mesa. Is that news or nonsense, Jason?
Yeah, to me it's nonsense. And, we've both talked about it, and maybe ad nauseum about what we think about preseason polls, and it's nonsense, but not just because it's a preseason poll. It's nonsense because this should come as no surprise to anyone who's familiar with Dixie State softball's program and the athletics that Coach Randy Simpkins has put on the field over the last couple of seasons. I mean, they have one of, if not the best pitcher in all of Division II throughout the entire country in Cambry Hazel, and she has been phenomenal now entering her junior season. She was great as a freshman. She was maybe even better as a sophomore, and to think she's still got 2 seasons left as a Dixie State Trailblazer is exciting for me. So it's nonsense because this should come as no surprise. They have some of the other good pitchers that are coming back and some that are coming in as freshmen who are very, very hyped. So this should be nonsense because it's a no-brainer.
I'm going to surprise you because I know what you're thinking. And last time we were talking about a preseason poll, I crumpled up a piece of paper and I threw it behind me and said, that's what I think of preseason polls. I think this is news because this is Dixie State's last season in the RMAC, last season in Division I. They want to make a statement. And by this preseason poll, in my opinion, they're already making that part of that statement. It's a coach's poll. So they're looking at it. And you remember, Colorado Mesa won the regular season title, kind of going away. Dixie State upset them and won the RMAC tournament title on Colorado Mesa's field, but these are largely based off of regular season results. And so Dixie State has that target on its back, and they're going to have to bring their A game. But they're pitching. You mentioned Cambry Hazel. They got Carissa Burgess back. They have Ashton Bowerly, a lefty. Brianna Castellan, a very talented freshman. Pitching is loaded for Dixie State this year. They've got some big bats coming in. This is news for me because they are. That's the goal. Win the RMAC and get into the postseason and make some noise there. It's news for me.
No doubt about it. Here, let's hear it.
Continuing on in our news or nonsense, we stay with spring sports and with preseason polls. The baseball poll was just released as well. Dixie State coming in number 2 in that poll, receiving just one first place vote out of 9. Colorado Mesa, who is nationally ranked at number 3 going in preseason, is the preseason favorite. No surprise there. Is this news or nonsense?
Yeah, to me, this is news. This is actually news to me, and I know what I just said about preseason polls, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's a preseason poll. It has everything to do with who's ahead of you in Colorado Mesa. For football and maybe in basketball, maybe Colorado School of Mines or CSU Pueblo is maybe your biggest rival in those sports. But for baseball, your biggest rival is Colorado Mesa. And it's been that way for seemingly a lot longer than we've even been in the RMAC as a full member for baseball. But last season, Colorado Mesa, they took you to the woodshed. They beat you 6 out of 7 times last season. And they really kind of basically ended your season in that tournament. They gave you that loss to force you to go down in that loser's bracket. And that was kind of what was Dixie State's downfall at that point. So being the fact that you are ranked now behind Colorado Mesa from the get-go, if that doesn't put a fire in the belly of each one of those individuals on that baseball team, I don't know what will, because this is one of their biggest rivalries. You have to take that personally and go out and try to change that narrative they had last season.
Agree. I'm going to go with I'm like I said, I'm going completely away from what I said during the fall sports conference preseason polls, and I think it's news. And I'm going to almost repeat myself. Dixie State wants to make noise in their final season in the RMAC and in Division II, and they're picked at number 2, which is right around where they finished last year, and behind Colorado Mesa. But like you said, they lost 6 of 7 to Colorado Mesa last year. These should be your 2 top teams going in to the conference season, and Dixie State has some unfinished business, has some things to prove against that Colorado Mesa team, and it's news because that's where they should be, and it shows the work that they need to do. So it's absolutely news, and they should hang that up and say, we're here, we want to get here to number 1.
Exciting season ahead for the Trailblazers. Can't wait.
Continuing in a preseason poll for our next question. This is question 4. Playing News or Nonsense here on Trailblazer Weekly. It's our version of is it a big deal or is it no deal? How about national rankings? Dixie State was not ranked in the NWCBA, National Writers Baseball Association, top 40 in December, but there is a group, Perfect Game. They're a group that does Division I, Division II baseball writing. They released their preseason poll. Dixie State was at number 17. That's the only national poll Dixie State is in right now. Is that news? Or is that nonsense?
I think it's nonsense. And, this is just one of those things that they're only in one preseason poll. They're obviously a better team than they've been getting credit for. We talked a little bit about, how they are a team that was right there last season and just kind of came short at the end. And I think they've got a lot of returners. They've got an awesome lineup coming back, and I think they're going to have a lot of good pitchers that are going to have a lot of experience. You lost your main kind of front-end guy on the mound last season in Jaden Murray, but you've got just about everyone else returning from that season, and your lineup is maybe one of the deepest that they've had since the Tanner Morash and Drew McLaughlin and Trey Camachi days from 4 or 5 years ago. And so I think it's nonsense just because it's a preseason poll, but it doesn't matter until you actually earn it. It's kind of based on last season's results. It's just the one national ranking from a group of, Perfect Game USA, not necessarily a national writers. So I think it's nonsense to me.
I think it's news. I'm going to tip my hand right now. I'm straight news today. But I don't care what poll it is. I saw a tweet out there from a certain supporter of a certain team that's one team ahead of us in the conference poll that said, we're ranked number 3 in the poll that matters. You know what? All national rankings matter because somewhere someone nationally is looking at this saying, look at this team. Like, this team is coming in maybe under the radar a little bit. Coach Phaeton-Hauer even thinks that this is one of the better teams going into the year that they have. And they're going to have good pitching, good hitting. I think it's news. And I think that number 17 ranking, take that and make note of it and circle back to it and say, yeah, we weren't surprised because this baseball team is ready to make some noise. So we finish our News or Nonsense segment. We stay on the baseball diamond. That same group, the Perfect Game group, a couple of weeks ago put out a list of some top 30 Division II prospects. And Dixie State sophomore Tyson Fisher was on that list, so he's officially a Division II top 30 prospect. Drayson, news or nonsense?
Yeah, to me, this is absolutely news, and we knew it last season when we saw Tyson Fisher play. I mean, we knew there was something special as a freshman. I mean, he's an absolute stud. 6'4", 220-pound sophomore. Let me just list off kind of his stats a little bit and where he ranked among his team in those stats. Third on the team with hits with 65, second in doubles, first in triples, second in home runs, third in batting average, fourth in OPS, and second in stolen bases. So as a freshman on this team that Coach Phaeton-Hauer says the best players will play. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman or a senior, the best players will play. And he came in, and as a freshman, an 18-year-old kid out of Dixie High School that played very, very well for the Flyers, came into his hometown school and tore it up as a freshman. Tyson Fisher is a legit stud, and I'm going to say it right now, he is a legit MLB prospect in his second season at Dixie State.
Remember, he hit for the cycle. He had a walk-off home run. I mean, the only thing that wasn't there was a championship, a conference championship, or getting to the postseason for everything you want to expect in a college season. So it's news for me as well. You broke it down very nicely. Just a sophomore. I mean, he's going to be just a one-man wrecking crew again. But then you pair him with everyone else they have coming back at the plate, and Sperlin and Fish and Engel and Flamatakis and Hollow. I mean, they've got a great core of returning hitters coming back for this 2020 baseball team. So absolutely news.
And don't be surprised in a few years, whether he forgoes his senior season, but when he's on a major league roster in 4 or 5 years from now, do not be surprised because he is an absolute stud and he's built for the pros.
There you go. We're going to circle back and see that prediction. We hope it comes true. Tyson Fisher, absolute stud of a sophomore baseball player. That is our News or Nonsense segment. Hope you enjoyed it. We do that from time to time. And when there's a lot more news to talk about, we'll circle back to that segment. So I really hope you enjoyed that. Speaking of baseball, it was a lot about baseball. We have head coach Chris Fatenauer on deck. He's waiting to join us next on Trailblazer Weekly. We'll talk to him about this season. The Trailblazers open this weekend in California at Cal State San Marcos. So how has practice gone? What are they doing to prepare for those games? They're going to be on the road more than they normally would at the start of the season. We're going to ask about all of those things coming up next. Our interview with Coach Fatenauer on Trailblazer Weekly.
We may have started out small, but we were great. Families and fans rallied behind their team. The community cared, and everyone showed up to cheer. Now, we're bigger than ever. Dixie State is going to Division I.
Here we go in transition, and he throws it down with one hand.
But at the end of the day, it's the community and fans that make us great. Whether you give $5 or $1,000, every dollar, every seat in the stands, every one of you can help blaze our trail to Division I athletics, because this is our team.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear, because for 75 years, he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel, someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, fun shine, pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique.
And your mother.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Let's go. Take the ball out there.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back inside Studio A in Genius Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University. It is Trailblazer Weekly on this Wednesday afternoon, and we are thrilled to have baseball head coach Chris Fatenauer joining us on the show. It's, some might say, the most wonderful time of the year. Things are starting to warm up. You can hear the ping of the bat, the ball and the leather gloves. I mean, it's a wonderful time. Baseball, softball getting ready to go, but baseball specifically opening up this weekend, heading to Cal State San Marcos, and we're excited to have Coach Fatenauer on the the show with us to preview not only this weekend, but preview the 2020 baseball team. So, Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Fired up.
Always love this time of year when these spring sports get going again. And just take us through this, I don't want to say the off season necessarily, but, through the fall and into, after the new year, things really ramped up, practice got going, and now you open this weekend. So how have things gone so far through this, last month of practice, especially after the new year, and how are things looking so far for this weekend's opening games?
Yeah, the month's been good. With the NCAA only allots us a certain amount of time when we can start back up, but we got going. We've been really healthy. A couple guys dinged up, little things here and there coming into the opener, but we've had a tremendous month, one of our best Januaries we've had in terms of guys staying healthy, guys competing. That's been probably my favorite thing about this group is we haven't had to talk about competing a whole lot. We've just competed. And the last 5 or 6 scrimmages have been extremely competitive and a lot of fun.
Of course, when anyone looks at this schedule, and we'll talk about the team specifically here in just a bit, but if anybody looks at your schedule, they're going to notice a difference right off the bat and think, oh, they're on the road for 7 games in a row, and I know there's reasons for that, but talk about what that means in terms of, does it change preparation at all, or does it help build the team closer because you're going to be gone on the road at the first 7 games, because normally you at least get a couple of the home games in there, the first few games, but circumstances dictated that you go and play on the road for these first 7 games. What's that like, preparing not just to play at home, but then you have to plan a road trip around these first games as well?
We love playing at Hearst. Obviously, that's our home. We still, on the season, will actually play 27 home games compared to 23 on the road. So we'll play more home games. But, yeah, just the way the schedule shook out, usually you're 2 or 3 years in advance, creating a schedule. We're already done with almost 2024 for the Division I schedule. So you're always preparing in advance, and some of the things we're doing this year were maybe reciprocated from last year, or we're going to be the next year. Now with the change in Division II to Division I, some of those things changed. So no change in our preparation. We'll get maybe 1 less day of practice hitting the road. I love being on the road. I love my kids and my wife tremendously, but I like being on the road for our guys. I think it's not worrying about putting the tarps on and off the field, and getting to the yard super early for batting practice, especially on a getaway day or something on Sunday. I like our guys getting away from here. We've slept in our own beds for long enough. Now we need to get a little bit uncomfortable, and it's nice to see how they respond in some uncomfortable environments and situations. So I'm thrilled to get them on the road, watch some movies, talk to each other, get to know each other a little bit more, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Get out there and let's play ball.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about this year's team. Obviously, pretty high expectations. Been in just about every preseason poll that there is. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's start with the pitching. I mean, obviously, you kind of lost maybe your front end guy, Jaden Murray, last year. Obviously, as a senior graduating, but you got a handful of good guys coming back that were an integral part of your season last year. Braden Bonner, Mason Folds, Jack Gonzalez, Preston Hannay, a handful of guys. Just talk a little bit about your rotation, your bullpen, just kind of the pitching aspect of this year's team.
Yeah, I think in my 8 years, I would tell you that this is probably our deepest pitching staff we've had. What we maybe lack right now going in or hasn't been established is that number 1 or 1A and 1B. You go back to the years when we had Mason Hilty and Dylan File. Unbelievable numbers. I mean, they hold a lot of records. But I would tell you we're deeper right now, in terms of numbers 3 through 15 maybe than we were at that time. Last year we had Jaden Murray to kind of tow it, on Friday nights, and we're hoping some guys step up in those moments. But we do have a lot of guys that have thrown college innings. We have a lot of guys that have pitched innings for us. We just need some guys to step up. But we're excited. I mean, we feel like we have about 6 guys that are competing for those weekend starter spots. We're gonna roll out, Justin Dunham on Friday night, who's a junior from Irvine Valley, who's just been our most consistent. Might not have the best stuff, not the firmest, but just the most consistent competitive outings to this point throughout the year. Jack Gonzalez, who established himself last year as a weekend guy and a a guy to be reckoned with in the conference, big left-hander, and then Tavita Gerber, another left-hander who's an older, mature guy who's pitched a lot of college innings. He'll throw on Sunday. But there's guys, right behind them, Preston Hannay, who's thrown a ton of innings for us, and we anticipate huge things from him. He didn't start the opening 2 weeks last year either, and then he's throwing game 1 in the conference tournament last year for us. So we just need to find the right spots to get him in there, but he's going to be an asset. And then we got a couple other transfers that are going to throw big innings for us. Braden Bonner obviously is going to hold down the back end of the bullpen for now. Last year he was on pace to be an All-American and probably hold the national lead last year in saves. I know he was at that point when we had to move him into the rotation just because of some injuries and some inconsistencies, but we think we're deep enough to keep him back there now, and we like the bridge that we have between there with some returners and some new guys as well.
Let's talk about offensively. I think Carrick and I were talking just in preparation for this interview. Maybe one of the better lineups you've had in the previous seasons. There's a handful of guys returning, obviously Jake Engel, Tyson Fisher, Aflamatakis, and Jake Levitt. Just a handful of guys that seem like have been around the program for a lot of years that are now back and even better. Maybe talk about some of those guys that are coming back, the depth you have with your offensive lineup, and maybe some new guys that we haven't heard about.
You talk sports and you listen to sports talk radio, and it's so hard to compare the past to the present, and it's hard for me to imagine, being better offensively than we were the years with Trey Camachi and Drew McLaughlin and Tanner Marash and some of those teams. But statistically, last year's team was, and basically everybody's back except for Bryce Feist and Brody Clifford, from an offensive group that led the RMAC in a lot of categories. We are deep offensively. It's a nice problem to have. It's going to, right now in scrimmages, everybody plays, and only 9 guys are going to play on Friday. And so some things will change, but we love our offense. We took some lumps 2 years ago in 18 when we went 25-25 and played some freshmen that year. And all those guys are now juniors. Jagan Levitt, Tyler Hollow, Alec Flamatakis, Tanner Harper falls into that junior class. I mean, there's a handful of guys in that junior class that have been through it, and they've grinded, and now they're established. They know what to expect. They know how to travel. They know how to hit college pitching. They know how to move the baseball. And so our offense is pretty good. I mean, it's certainly something that we think we're going to hang our hat on this year, but we also know last year we were really good offensively, and we finished third in the conference and got edged out at the last minute in the regional because we didn't pitch enough and we didn't defend enough. So ultimately, those are the 2 things we have to do. We think the offense is going to show up, but to win big games and beat people's aces, you got to defend and pitch.
We are chatting with Dixie State baseball head coach Chris Fatenauer, entering year 8 inside the Trailblazer dugout. And Coach, it's the time of year where a lot of things we have to talk about. We can talk about the players returning and coming back. We haven't seen any games yet this year, so you talk about sports talk radio and things that you're going to hear a lot. You're going to hear about preseason polls a lot, and I for one don't always put a lot of stock in preseason polls, but it seems like baseball and softball and the spring sports, there's more of those polls to go off of. Not only do you have the conference poll, but there's the the preseason region polls and the national polls, and you're second in the preseason RMAC poll. You're number 17, as high as number 17 in some national polls, number 5 in the region polls. I mean, what does that mean to your team? Obviously, it is just a preseason poll. It's all about where you end up at the end of the season. But what does that mean to your program in terms of people recognizing and realizing and respecting the program and saying, hey, we better keep Dixie State on our radar because they're going to be a team to beat in 2020?
Yeah, I think you said it perfect. I mean, I think it's reputation-based for the most part. Nobody really knows what we have. I don't think in our sport, it's especially the Division II level, it's not like Alabama football where there's hundreds of people evaluating the third string defensive end. So nobody necessarily knows what we have and what we don't. But our players and our program and the staff before me established ourselves as a power in the West in Division II baseball, and so that helps us get there. Some of the accolades for our players preseason, I mean, they've earned that, by what they did last year and the numbers that they put up. But we really don't talk about that in our clubhouse at all. We obviously, the regional stuff, once it gets going, that's the most important thing in Division II baseball. So that's discussed a little bit. But I mean, the guys talk about the polls, whether it's lack of respect or we get too much respect or whatever it is. But yeah, we let the ball and bat settle that on the field.
Alumni are a huge part of your program here at Dixie State. You like to stay in contact, and we like to reflect on those who are still playing and doing well or have done well. I know you have your big alumni weekend with the dinner and the golf tournament every year, and it's huge, and it's great to be a part of that. Maybe let's take a minute and talk about some of those alumni that are out there tearing it up in baseball still. You've got a couple of pitchers out there, and Dylan File and Jaden Murray, and just it's great to have guys from Dixie State baseball out making a name for themselves at the professional level.
It is. Obviously, it helps in the recruiting process. The fact that, there's 3 jerseys in my office above my head that are guys that have pitched in the big leagues, and having some more guys. We've had, I think, 9 guys sign professionally in my 8 years or my 7 previous years, and the majority of those have been pitchers. We've really prided ourselves on recruiting good pitching and developing them. Dylan Files was tremendous for us. He's been tremendous in the Brewers organization. I think he went 6-1 in AA on the back end of last year and was an all-star at 1 or 2 levels. And he's a guy that's got a chance. He's a guy that's got a chance to be in the big leagues in the next 2 years. And we think that he certainly had some work ethic. He's got the fire. A lot of talk this week right now with Kobe Bryant and kind of what happened there, and just that competitive edge and that fire. I mean, that's a dude that's got it. And really excited for him. I think he's got a chance to maybe be on the 40-man here in the next year and really get rolling. Jaden Murray was in single A last year and pitched really, really well and has a chance to move up in the Rays organization. And then Tanner Howells with the Twins, pitching really well, and Logan Porter's with the Kansas City Royals still grinding it away, and as a catcher, which is a grind in minor league baseball. So we're proud of them, and we're excited to see lots of those guys back here next month.
Yeah, Coach, we were fortunate enough to have Dylan on our show just this last season after he had kind of, or was in the middle of his tremendous stretch where he pitched so well, and it was really fun to get to talk to him, and he gave you a lot of credit of kind of bringing him into the program and really just talked you up about how well you were able to develop him and kind of attributed you to his success in the minor league so far. So it was really fun to be able to talk to him, and we're looking forward to your season. It's getting exciting, and I always say, I think I mentioned it before, when it starts baseball season, it's kind of when spring starts for me, and it's kind of that fun time of the year. So we're looking forward to it. Yeah, we're really excited. I like our group. I like our guys. We have a good group of coaches, good team. I mean, our managers. I mean, honestly, it's just our administration's great. I mean, it's a really fun time to be a part of it and to be a part of our program.
He is, excuse me, I don't know where my voice has gone today, Coach. He's head coach Chris Fatenauer in his 8th year as the bench boss here at Dixie State and the manager of this Dixie State baseball program. And we wish you all the best down in San Marcos this weekend, and hope you come back with a couple of wins and figure out where this team's at. And we're looking forward to 2020 and what this year has to bring, Coach. So thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it, guys.
We got to take our final break. When we come back, we will wrap the show up and look ahead some of the matchups we have coming up this weekend, and specifically about this Dixie State, Cal State, San Marcos matchup and what it means to have the spring sports back in action here at Dixie State once more. We'll take our final time out and wrap up the show next on Trailblazer Weekly.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
Hey guys, how are you today? Good. I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I groomed the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius, and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
This graph is square.
Pretty close.
Artemisia is all the sagebrushes, but there's your needle and thread. Which one is this?
Come down. Carbonate, right? Sodium carbonate.
There is a place where looking out means looking in.
where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere. And just growing up the way I grew up and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, good. You played before, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all state in high school.
Good, let's run some routes. Give me a post route.
All right, let's do it.
We may not always play good, but when we want to look good, we come to the Dixie State Campus Store.
Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center. We'll see you there.
Today's show is brought to you by Rock Canyon Bank, serving Utah businesses and agriculture for over 25 years, with locations in Pleasant Grove, Orem, Provo, Spanish Fork, Fillmore, and at 94 East Tabernacle, right here in St. George. Rock Canyon Bank, back to banking. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. Big shout out and big thank you to head coach Chris Fatenauer for joining us. We wish the Trailblazers all the best this weekend in California. The athletics world has been shocked and grieving over the better part of the last week now, or half a week after the learning of the passing of Kobe Bryant on Sunday. Kobe didn't have any direct ties to Dixie State, although a member of our Dixie State Athletics Hall of Fame, Marcus Banks, played in the NBA, played against him, learned a lot from him. He's been pretty active on social media over the last few days, and have seen pictures tweeted of both of the two of them together. Like I didn't have any direct ties to Dixie State, but when something that big happens, we feel like we need to bring it up. We were shocked and just as sad as everybody, and just a hard thing in the athletic world, and wanted to kind of honor him and remember him in this final segment of our show today.
Yeah, it's it's hard to think of a way that he hasn't impacted some of our lives in some way or another, and you can even feel it here in Little St. George, in a Division II program, and our men's basketball team and women's basketball team, and frankly all athletics. And I imagine many athletes here on the campus of Dixie State has felt some sort of impact from Kobe Bryant, and maybe they picked up a basketball because of him, or maybe they started to play their sport because of the influence of Kobe Bryant. The Dixie State women's basketball team put out a tweet a few days ago, and just with a picture of Kobe and his daughter Gigi, and with a caption of "bigger than the game of basketball," and it really is. Kobe Bryant was bigger than the game of basketball. And a lot of people ask, how do you feel that way about someone who you never knew? And my thoughts to that is just saying that he impacted so many people. You felt some sort of emotion with Kobe, whether you loved him, whether you hated him, whether you respected him. He made you feel something, and that's maybe one of the biggest things that you can speak to someone who you didn't know, to make you feel something like that. And it's a terrible tragedy that he's gone, but we can learn to love each other and respect every single day.
And that's been one of the big things, is you've seen kind of the country come together, and it really, in a time of unsettlement, with the whole impeachment thing going on, and the country is just unsettled and fighting and bickering, and you hate to have something like this have to happen and bring the country together, but it has. And it's not just been sports fans, it's been everybody, as like he said, it was bigger than basketball, and it just leaves a big hole and a big impact on this world and in the basketball and the athletics community specifically. So just wanted to end our show that way today. Great show today. We do want to remind you that the Dixie State baseball team will be at Cal State San Marcos this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Single game each day, a 3-game series, and the baseball season is up and running.
It's opening day.
Softball will be right behind it on Tuesday, and then the men's women's basketball teams will be in Colorado at Fort Lewis and at Adams State Friday and Saturday. So stay tuned to DixieStateAthletics.com for those results. Thanks for watching today. He's Drayson Ball. I'm Carrick Segmiller. We'll catch you next week for our football signing day special. Have a great day. Go Trailblazers.